The Cold Omaha Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to Procedurally Generated. I'm Henry Bell, and joining me today is Brandon Bowling. Tom's gone this week because he had to cover the Wolves game today, so it's just the two of us, but we've got plenty to talk about. It's going to be a little bit shorter than a normal episode, however, because there's really no news to speak of this week, and also something else that we'll get to in just a moment here. You'll see. But first, I want to get things started with what we've been playing this week. Brandon, how's it going?
I'm doing all right. It's been a pretty quiet week in terms of news. How about you? How you doing?
I've been better. I was walking home from work today, got off the train, and being my typical clumsy self, was watching some Netflix while walking and hit an uneven stone in the pavement. So, I just spent the last 45 minutes bandaging up my bleeding fingers. I think I got a pretty bad sprain here, so I may or may not be taking a little trip to urgent care later on, depending on how badly this swells. But not too bad.
Your job requires you to use your fingers, so you might want to get those fixed.
Yeah, working in IT, it's going to be a little difficult to type. But fortunately, it feels like it's at worst a mild sprain. I've got to say, though, I'm kind of impressed with my resilience. I fell from my full height, which is 6'3", and landed with all my weight on one hand, and my hand just folded, the whole hand, my fingertips were touching the back of my wrist almost. But somehow, miraculously, my hand is still in one piece, so I'm just counting my blessings. I may have lost some fingertips and knuckle skin, but fortunately, I can still make a fist. It hurts, but I can do it. And
right.
We all know, though, that, Brandon, as you know, I've never been one to let injuries keep me from gaming. Isn't that right?
That's true.
I'll never forget about when last time I had a bad hand injury and I had to have pins put in my hand and had a full-on cast and everything. And that's when I learned how to cross my arms when playing computer and use my mouse with my left hand and WASD with the three fingers coming out of my right hand's cast.
I don't know if that's a healthy thing to brag about.
Healthy and impressive are two very different things, Brandon.
Good point.
But yeah, so anyways, enough about me. That is why we're going to be running a little bit shorter, but we still have several games that I wanted to talk about that we've been playing this week, and I'm actually going to mix things up by being the first to talk. Yeah, that's right, because I played the most games this week. Shocking, I know. I've been so caught up in the Switch, it's been a little rough with the release schedule. However, I've had the opportunity to pick up one new PC game as well as a couple new Switch games. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was the PC game that I got. You guys may remember probably about a year ago now when I got super hype on the series Earth Defense Force. These are the games.
Super shoot 'em up?
Yeah, these are the games where it's a third-person shooter where you play as a military officer of the Earth government or whatever. I'm not sure if it's Japanese or a One Earth thing, but I skipped most of the story. But what it is it's a bunch of soldiers fighting against giant bugs. It's the ultimate B-movie. I absolutely love it. And this game is just as campy and cheesy as the previous entries. Still a lot of people randomly chanting EDF and having call-outs that make little to no sense with the context of what's going on. And most importantly, so many bugs on screen to murder with over 800 weapons. Yeah! I'm a really big fan of these games from a really cheesy standpoint, and it was on sale for, I think it was $20 over the weekend, and I was like, hey, I'm grabbing it.
It sounds like a deal. Isn't that a game that has almost as many guns as Borderlands?
Oh yeah, definitely. And the thing that's nice is they're a little more, they're a little less just shake it up and roll the dice than the Borderlands guns, where it's this is one that has 7 projectiles. This one has 8. They're different, see? It's a little bit more like this one shoots a straight beam, this one has lower range, this one splits into 4 shots, this one, has lower ammo, that kind of stuff, which is really cool. I should mention specifically the title of the game I'm playing, probably, sorry. It is specifically EDF, so Earth Defense Force 4.1, The Shadow of New Despair, which is technically a remake of Earth Defense Force 2027, I believe. 2025? It's a remake of the previous Earth Defense Force game. And it was ported to PC, among other things, has some slightly improved graphics and all that fun stuff. Apparently is less prone to crashing, which I haven't had any issues with crashes or anything. And most importantly for me, supports my SteelSeries Stratus XL controller. Because you guys, I finally got a Bluetooth card for my PC. So I can properly use my SteelSeries controller with it, and it will emulate an Xbox controller, which is great. It means any game that has...
looking like a cheap device.
Exactly. It means any game that, I don't have to use the third-party tools and all that, exactly. So any game that has support for the Xbox controller will now support my controller, which is great. I've been having a lot of fun with it. I still can't recommend this thing enough if you are looking for a controller for like an Android phone or something as well as your PC. But yeah, so that was a lot of fun to play. Highly recommend it. There's not a whole lot to say about it except for, Brandon, you might be interested in this. One of the big additions they added in the Shadow of New Despair remake is giant mech walkers. Basically giant boxy looking Gundam-esque bipedal robot warriors. You could climb into the suit and you fight giant kaiju they added in. It's pretty sweet. You're
cool.
You're not shooting at them, you're boxing with them. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, I highly recommend this game if you're just looking for something to spend some time on. It's a great game to play while you're watching TV or something on your other monitor or however your setup is. And definitely a great time killer. Definitely would recommend it if you can see it on a sale. Don't know I could recommend it for $40-$50, but if you can get it for 20 or 25, I'd say definitely worth checking out. And you'll probably know, I would recommend watching a little bit of gameplay of it. I haven't uploaded any to my channel yet, although now that I think about it, I probably should. But you guys I would recommend looking up some gameplay because you should be able to get a pretty good idea of if it's up your alley or not, just from if you find it hilarious and intriguing from gameplay of it. Because it's definitely a series that's not for everyone, but I am enjoying it quite thoroughly.
That's good to hear, man. It's always been a game that I've always played while kind of doing something else, or my brain is somewhere else. Kind of
sure.
I need to move
it's like
my
a good
fingers.
Drunk game or something like that.
Yeah, it's like I come home from a party and I'm like, I need to just move my fingers.
Exactly. I need to get you on this though, because it does have full co-op and local split screen too. And this is a game that I definitely would recommend playing with friends, not just because it's very difficult, but also because it's a lot more fun that way.
That's true. Having friends in this type of game makes it fun.
Hell yeah. But that's really all I have to say about EDF 4.1, The Shadow of New Despair. Just wanted to make sure we touched on that. Next up, Brandon, I know you have played a little bit more of some of the games you talked about last week. You wanted to talk about one of those?
Yeah, I just want to do a quick update to one of the major releases for this month, which was Nier Automata. So
Heck
I played a
crazy Android game.
Yeah, very good game. I wanted to talk about just a couple of things. This game is really good at being very hands-off in terms of how you play it. So there's a couple of tips and tricks I've noticed as playing it, as well as if you want to optionally procking some of those joke endings just for the giggles and possibly achievements. So the first thing I wanted to note, too, is that from a technical standpoint, the game actually, as a PC port, runs relatively well on many PCs, but not all of them. So I was actually doing a little bit of research on my own end and found a pretty interesting article from Rock Paper Shotgun referencing Fix...
the mod.
A mod says Fix Nier Resolution. And it's a mod by... Who was it from again? I don't quite remember. Kaladin? Mm-hmm. Or /FAR.
Sure.
It has multiple versions, so it's definitely being updated quite regularly. And what it does is the multiple versions fix some of the UI systems as well as fixing that really major problem, or at least the one that's most notable, is that if you're in windowed mode, sometimes it'll knock your resolution down to 900.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Instead of 1080.
Doesn't it also help with some of the performance issues as well, kind of a la the early Dark Souls mods?
Yep. So it helps with performance. So you can probably squeeze an extra, I think 20 to 60% depending on your computer configuration.
Nice. Yeah.
So that, of course, increases frame rate ever so slightly or a lot, depending on what you have.
I would say lower-end systems will probably see higher effects.
Yeah. So you'll probably be locked at 60, more or less, if you're using VSync with this mod, but it does smooth it out effectively. The game runs pretty well by itself, but if you're looking for that little extra oomph, or if your PC is configured in a way that's not optimal for the game, this is definitely a good go-around. It has two options. You can either directly install the zip file and manually insert the mod, or there's also one that's just a clean install that does it automatically.
Nice. Are you using the mod?
I actually was thinking about it, but it's been running so well I haven't bothered. But I'm thinking about running it just so I can have my first experience modding in general.
Sure. It's not a bad idea, especially because I would recommend trying the zip method then, because that's a great way. I mean, modding is largely how I learned a lot of my IT skills and stuff back in the day, before you could just, go in-game and select your mods and have them auto-install and stuff like that. Learning about, conflicts and having files in the right directories and all that is great skill to have.
Yeah, that is definitely true. I definitely want to be able to be more flexible in how I manage my computer. Mm-hmm. One more thing to note too is that I did talk about it earlier, that this game does use Denuvo DRM system. The mod is built around not modifying the files that Denuvo keeps its eye on. So nice. You should have no problem modifying this, and without effectively voiding or ruining your game experience.
Yeah, God forbid that you mod this single player game.
Yeah, so I think it's the executables it tends to stay away from. I don't know exactly the details, but if it works out really well, I'll give you an update next week.
Awesome, cool.
So now to the actual 3 playing thing, the 3 gameplay.
Oh, right, it's a video game. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, forgot. So first off, I've noticed is, as I said, this has multiple. Last week I said it has multiple genre mixes in, so you can do top-down shooter mode and stuff like that. The one I want to talk about primarily at this point is the bullet hell mode. And bullet hell, if you don't know, is basically, it's usually when you're doing the top-down or the isometrics, where you're just getting a hail of projectiles coming at you.
It's like Galaga on crack, basically.
Exactly. So when you play the game, you notice that there's 2 types. All the bullets effectively are orbs, and they come in 2 different colors. They come in bright red and a darker, more blood red. I'm sure you're familiar with the color, Henry.
Oh yeah.
Ow. I'm sorry, Henry.
It's all good. I almost forgot. Go on.
So the main issue is the bright red ones you can actually use your projectiles to destroy. However, you typically have to dodge the dark red projectiles. However, the dark red projectiles can be destroyed if you melee attack them.
That sounds a bit is that hard to differentiate between the two?
Nope, it's pretty clear.
Okay, I was going to say Shades of Red seems like a cruel choice. Why not do red and blue or red and orange or something?
It's bright, popping, poppy red to dark.
I'm thinking dark. Devil May Cry red versus Castlevania red.
Yeah, so it's much a darker.
I got you.
Color. So you'll notice the difference, but you can melee the darker ones instead of just dodging them.
Mm-hmm.
This will be very important once you get to some bosses, because some of the bosses will change it up and do a bullet hell mode. And usually, as long as you keep your button down on a projectile shooter, how you map your computer your keyboard or your gamepad,
mm-hmm.
You'll be fine. But the dark red ones are usually what you have to dodge. But typically, if you remember that you can use heavy attacks primarily to defeat these, you actually can sweep out a bunch to give yourself a small window.
Nice.
And those split seconds count.
Give yourself an opening.
Yep. Yeah, it's super convenient. The second thing I wanted to note, too, is that you actually have finisher moves in this game. It's sometimes hard to notice because it's so fast-paced, but if you do knock down an enemy, you'll notice that it'll have a contextual command, which is usually the B button,
mm-hmm.
if you're playing with an Xbox controller. That will finish off the enemy. So you can knock them down to maybe 1/3 health, or even in some cases half health, and you can actually finish them off. So it's a good way to quickly finish off enemies. Also very, very, very convenient. You can't really go wrong there with that one. And the third option I've noticed too is, I think I talked about it last week, but I cannot stress enough. If you're having trouble with your visual options in the game, like how it transitions, do not hesitate to go into your settings and fiddle with your video out options, like how the camera works. This is one of the few Japanese games where the camera is not bad.
Wait, you have menu options, though, for camera control? That's interesting.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's kind of unique to this game since you have so many different perspectives you have to manage.
Sure, that makes total sense. I'm impressed, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, that's not something I would expect from, especially a title that is, like, primarily for console.
Yeah, so if you're having issues, especially on PC, do not hesitate to go in there and change those out.
Yeah, because you probably are going to have a slightly smaller, like, game space compared to a large flat screen TV or whatever on a console.
Exactly. So don't hesitate to go in there and work on that, because there are a couple of people I've seen on a couple of forums that complained about it, and the tools are there. You just have to use them. And don't hesitate to experience, because you can always reset it to default, and default is not a bad option in this game, which is rare because it's a Japanese game. Most Japanese games have terrible cameras.
Yes, although it is worth noting that you are running on some 27 inches. People with smaller screens may still need to mess with it.
Oh, yeah. No, I've actually gone in there and done a little bit of tweaking on my own time just to experience it, and it has improved slightly. I actually have more confidence in my ability to edit game settings to fit my needs.
It's important to do it. One of my big eye-opening moments was when I found out there's more settings in INI files. I was like, oh, snap. I can make anything run on a potato with these.
Exactly.
Turn off shadows.
Yeah. There was one more thing I almost forgot.
Yo.
This is super important. So I did talk about some of the random endings that you can get. So I've kind of gotten it down to a science. I'm not going to spoil the endings, but typically you can prop them by either doing the exact opposite of what the objective tells you.
Sure.
Or being very overzealous in your fighting. Because there are definitely points where your allies do become damageable. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times...
Oh, you can get friendly fire punishments?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So definitely if you want to proc some of those endings just for either just the giggles or get an achievement, definitely go for it. Just make sure you back up your save.
Nice.
Yeah,
awesome.
So that's all I really have for that one.
Cool. Well, before you go into the other big blockbuster for this month, I have a couple of Switch mini busters I wanted to talk about.
Let's do it.
So, you guys if you guys have Switches, well, first up, I wanted to mention something. This is a little, public service message for you guys. The Switch is having a really annoying bug right now with internet that I ran into when I was trying to download a couple of games that I'm going to get to, but also I was trying to play in the Splatoon 2 open beta. I really wanted to try it out, even though they had just abysmal, 1 hour long test times, which is insane. Weird. But and some of them during work hours and stuff. I'm just like, I don't know who's playing these, but whatever. But yeah, I was having issues with my internet at the time. I could not. We had just gotten a brand new router and everything, and I for the life of me could not figure out why anytime I tried to load the eShop, it was throwing a DNS error. If you see this DNS error, you guys, don't panic. It's probably that your Switch had a software update, or a firmware update rather, and needs to be turned off and on for the internet to start working again. I'm not totally clear on why it is that this works, but I've seen a couple articles confirming it works, and I actually ended up figuring this out on my own from sheer frustration on Sunday. But you can't just restart it, because that's what I normally do. You can't just hold the power button and then just scroll down to restart. You have to actually hold down the power button, select power options, turn off, let it shut off completely, and then power it back on. I think when you restart, it does some kind of quick boot or something like that, and it's not a clean shutdown. So yeah, if you run into any internet connectivity or DNS issues, make sure you give that a shot. Anyways, though, on to the games that I got to play once I got my eShop working again. So, as I'm sure you guys are expecting me to say, a pretty big title that got a fair amount of advertising for the Switch just came out a couple days ago called, what is it called? It's something Heroes, Has Been Heroes, that's the one. Has Been Heroes. It's by the creators of Trine, who, in my opinion, have a pretty terrible track record, and it looks like it continues to be pretty terrible. I am not going to be picking up this game, and I did not get it. It is a $20 title that is a side-scrolling Not really side-scrolling. It's a two-dimensional RPG that's both turn-based and real-time and has some real weird management and lane-based battle mechanics. It's kind of like people are saying it's somewhat similar to Darkest Dungeon, but I hesitate to even say that. I think they're just saying it because of the aesthetic and because it's a roguelike. But it doesn't seem like a very good roguelike. The loop doesn't seem great. I'm going to probably stay off of that one. So sorry to disappoint if you guys are really into it. I know that a lot of people have said it's fixable. A lot of the issues with it are patchable, so I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll probably be picking it up if it starts getting some more positive press. But at the time of release, every review I could find online was like 50% or lower. And I was like, oh, damn, I'm not going to waste my money on this.
Dang.
Instead, I decided to take a risk and pick up a game called Snake Pass. This is a game that is actually out for every platform, so even if you don't have a Switch, you can check this out. And what it is a 3D quote-unquote platformer. You don't actually jump a lot, or at all for that matter, but it's a 3D platforming game where you play as a snake named Noodle, which is amazing.
Sorry.
I absolutely love it. He's adorable. It's a little cartoon snake, and the whole thing is it's just a really calm, there's no enemies or anything like that. It's a really calm, physics-based platformer where your movement is like snake controls. It's really interesting. To move forward or to slither, you hold the right trigger on the Switch, and then you'll move really slowly in a straight line if you just hold it, but what you're supposed to do is sway left and right and kind of do the snake ribbon move that they do, and you'll move faster the more that you zig and zag. And so you're kind of moving like a snake left and right as you move forward, and then you can hold A to raise your head. And besides that's all the controls. You can also, I guess you can hold left trigger to grip the surface you're on, but that's really not that useful. But they give you those movement controls, and then they just put you on these playground little maps where you have to. It's just full of collectibles, and you're just solving really basic physics puzzles where it's not even like weights or anything like that. It's just like you need to get to the top of this jungle gym looking thing. To do it, you're going to have to fight physics, gravity, and being a snake. So you'll think of like a bunch of like crosses connected to all tied together in like a ladder shape. Mm-hmm. You're like wrapping your way around each step of the cross, kind of using your own friction of being wrapped around it to keep you from falling, which is really fun. And so but you have to keep in mind where your center of gravity and stuff is, because say you climb all the way up on that and then just your head is on the platform at the top of the ladder and your tail is just hanging loose, not wrapped around anything, the weight of your tail will pull you right off that ledge.
Wow.
Fortunately, there is a way around that, and that is your hummingbird pal, the only speaking character in the game as far as I know. And his whole spiel is he explains the story to you, he's kind of the tutorial giver, and if you press X, he will fly down and pick up your tail for you. Like, you're still in control of your head, but he'll lift your tail, which allows you to get out of some sticky situations where your tail's center of gravity is like further back because your tail is just dragging.
It's actually a pretty interesting game mechanic.
It's really cool. I really enjoy this game. It's really cute. It's pretty good looking. It's very much evokes kind of like Banjo-Kazooie vibes, I'd say. And speaking of Banjo-Kazooie, it features one of my all-time favorite composers. No, not Grant Kirkhope, I know, sorry. But his partner in crime, the one, the only, the David Wise. Man who, if you don't know, wrote tons of classic video game music, but most famously was one of the two tag team of genius composers for Donkey Kong Country, him and Grant Kirkhope. And so he's well known, probably best known for Sticker Brush Symphony, the famous DKC song. But he did all the music for this game, and it is great. It's whimsical. It's not Donkey Kong Country catchy per se, but it totally fits with the vibe of the game. The level design, it feels like each level kind of feels like it has a slight theme. It's very David Wise. It feels like a very well-polished, fun product to the point where I'm kind of surprised it's an indie title and that it wasn't like produced by Microsoft or anyone like that. Overall, I would definitely recommend this game. It's only like $20, so like why not? It's a good time, especially if you have a Switch, because it features all of the portability options, support for all of that, and it's really nice being able to just like, this is definitely the kind of game, since it has no failure conditions really. Like the worst thing that happens is if you fall off of a floating island you're on, you'll respawn at the beginning of it and have to redo a couple collectibles. But like, since there's no enemies or anything to speak of, this is kind of a game that you'll probably want to pick up, play for a bit, and then set down and walk away without having to worry too much, which makes the Switch a really good option for it, because like, hey, I mean, the Switch is made for literally that. So yeah, I would recommend this game pretty strongly. Again, only $20, so, and when you consider that the other similarly priced titles on the store, I'd say this is probably my third favorite product available for the Nintendo Switch right now, after Zelda and The Binding of Isaac.
All right, sounds good, man.
Yeah, it's solid. It's a very fun game. Also, worth noting, it is fantastic for kids. And again, it's a cartoon snake, so don't worry about getting freaked out if you're someone who has a fear of snakes. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about Snake Pass. Before I get to the other Switch game that I've been playing, Brandon, I wanted to toss it back over to you, because I have a feeling you've probably been playing a little bit more Mass Effect.
Yeah, played tons of it. It feels like, on occasion, a guilty pleasure. I feel like I like this game way too much, and then I have to be objective. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to do that.
Brandon, don't be objective. This is not... I want your opinion. This is a podcast, damn it, not like some review by IGN or something. I'm not worried about you being professional. I want to know what you think about this game and how you're enjoying it. Don't you worry how other people think. I want to know how you think about this. How are you enjoying it? Tell me about the game.
So I'm enjoying it a lot. I played up to a point where I can say now, who would particularly love it, who would be kind of lukewarm to it, and who would probably just not like it at all. And this game is what I would define as one of the best hit or misses ever, because if it hits, it hits, and if it misses, man, it's just way over your head. So one thing I will say is that the one thing that this game actually hits really well on, the obvious part is the gameplay. Even with the micromanaging point taken out, where having the ability to, manage your companions' abilities and when and how they use them is definitely a bit of a loss. I am still slightly confused why they got rid of it.
Yeah, especially because didn't they also kind of limit the number of actions you have available to you at any given time in combat, too? Isn't it like you only have 3 abilities?
Yeah, but it's actually an increase, because before you only had your one core ability.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so, like, for example, if you played Soldier, you had your slow time, and then if you played, like, your tech, you had...
I guess it's been almost a decade since I have played any of those games, but but I think I may be conflating the fact that I could use a full team's worth of abilities at the drop of a hat.
Exactly, and that's really where the loss comes in. What they've kind of made up for it in is the fact that you can just mix and match your personal suite of powers.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I actually had a question for you, because I feel like we haven't really touched much on the RPG system in this game. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about, like, I've heard that, like, this game features, like, a very, like, free-form respecking or specialization process, which is very kind of the antithesis of what the previous games were, where you had to lock in right at the beginning with your class and all that. Can you kind of tell us how that works and, like, how freeform it really is and all that?
Yeah, it's really, really, really freeform, actually, especially when you get to higher levels, and you can start having some real fun. So what you start off as is that when you start a new game, you'll pick from, like, one of 9 different classes, ranging from Soldier, Infiltrator, Hacker, and there's a whole list. I haven't memorized all of them. But each of them come with a suite of abilities that effectively cater to your initial play style. So I was kind of like, okay, well, I kind of want to do a bit of sniping and then kind of come in for the finisher after I drop shield. So I picked Infiltrator, because that allowed me to, at a distance, take pot shots, gave me enough weapon slots to do it, so I could have a sniper rifle and an assault weapon, or a sidearm, depending on the situation. And effectively, once I, softened them up, I could go in a flank, because I knew that my comrades would, cover me and keep them occupied, and they'd come in with flank attacks. Also, the nice thing about Infiltrator is that your boost ability allows you to effectively blink.
Yeah, so, you were telling us about that. That is cool.
That is super, super interesting. So as you start to level up, initially in the first suite of games, you leveled up within your perk tree, and that was all you did. And it was easy, and it made sense. And as you unlocked stuff, it was added to your suite.
Totally.
So now, with this system, it's completely freeform. So you still have all those same categories, but you can put your upgrade points in any tree you want. So you can be an infiltrator and say, I want to do some tech stuff. Start tossing some stuff in tech.
Are there some skills that are unique to if you actually are like a given class, or does reassigning your points actually change what class you are based on what you have the most points in?
You can switch your classes on the fly, but at the same time, you can also apply different effects, like different perks from different classes into it. So for example,
sure. Sorry, just to, I think I may have phrased that poorly. Can you, like you said, you're an infiltrator?
Right.
Could you change from an infiltrator if you wanted to, or are you still an infiltrator no matter what, but you can change how you assign your points?
No, you can change how you assign your points, and you can change your class.
Gotcha. And is your class determined by what you have points in, or is that a separate thing from your like talent tree?
It's a separate thing.
Okay, gotcha. So you have like a class, and then from there, what is the benefits of, say, putting points into the talent tree of the class that you actually are?
It increases, like for example, for infiltrator, it'll decrease my cooldown for my face, not my face shield, but my invisibility cloak. My cloaking.
Gotcha. And is that just additive, where it's like if you have 5 points in infiltrator skills, you'll have just a higher percentage than if you had, say, 3?
No, it's not the amount of points you put in. It's a tree. So like your first point is 1 point, and your second point is 2 point, and that'll be like extra grenade slot.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So what I was again, poor phrasing on my part. What I'm asking is, like, do you get any benefits for choosing, say, infiltrator abilities if you are an infiltrator class? Because you're saying each class has their own abilities, right? But anybody can use them.
Mm-hmm.
But then, do you get a benefit for being an infiltrator who chooses to use abilities of your own class? Is there some, like, or is it just that the abilities in that class tend to work with the play style of a given class?
It just tends to work with the play style.
Okay, so they're not. It's not like you get a better bonus from abilities if you are that class and you're taking the abilities. So, like a soldier with 1 point in infiltrator gets the same benefits from that 1 point as an infiltrator with 1 point in infiltrator.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So you can fully spec out infiltrator, and if that's your thing, you can fully spec it out and have that whole suite of options.
But I could also say I'm an infiltrator and never put any points into infiltrator if I wanted, and I'd be just as good as a soldier who did that.
Yeah, because
gotcha.
Actually that's what I ended up doing.
Interesting.
So soldier class, and then started upgrading my combat fitness. So
what
I can
is the point?
Carry it.
What's the point of choosing an overall class then? Does it like affect like weapons
it
available to you or something?
A little bit.
Okay, gotcha. Does it affect like what weapons you can use and stuff?
It doesn't affect what weapons you can use. It affects initially how many weapons you can carry.
Interesting, but that, again, I'm assuming that's actual skills you take that increase that, not just like not because of the class you took.
It's usually because of the class. So, for example,
fascinating. So in this case,
case,
if you were a soldier with, let's say, no talent points in anything, and you were an infiltrator with no points in anything, the soldier might have a larger inventory.
Yeah, just for weapons.
Got
you can
it.
carry a max of 4.
Cool. So that's comforting, because at first I was kind of like, what's the point of having classes if they don't do anything? But what you're saying is the classes have kind of a static effect, and then the talents are achievable by any class, but you can't get those static effects from just speccing into another class.
Well, it's kind of like the best way to describe it is kind of like the way Dark Souls kind of starts off. Like, you know how you can start off like either unspec, like Waste of Flesh if you play Bloodborne, but then you have like your soldier or your
you can be naked
and
too.
Stuff like that. But you can still upgrade anything else. You just have a slight concentration in any of those 3 specs.
Or you can be naked guy and have no specialization.
Yeah, Waste of Flesh.
Oh, I was thinking, isn't it like, I thought it was like Hopeless One or something like that.
It really does depend on the game, really.
Oh, I was thinking the original Dark Souls, or like the Unburned or something weird. Unkindled, is that what it was?
I don't know. I think that's just the title that you get in Dark Souls 3.
Oh, I'm trying to figure out whatever, who cares. Anyways, though, well, that's awesome. That actually is pretty comforting. Tell me more about your experience with it now that you've put some more hours in.
Well, it's fun. Like, for example, like I started when I started playing as an infiltrator, I immediately started putting points into soldier skill so I could carry more weapons. One thing to note about that is that once you get 9 points into any specific class, you unlock one of their alts.
Ooh, okay.
You can just fly. You know what I mean? And then if you keep on going up that tree, you can increase its effectiveness if you choose.
So there is a reason to pick one tree as like your primary tree.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to be there's actually a benefit to sticking with one thing if you are into a specific one.
Yeah. That being said, they do hand out like points like candy.
Gotcha.
So.
Sure.
They hand out upgrade points like candy.
Yeah, it's an open world game, I figure.
Yeah, so it's not that difficult. It's like compared to like when I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn, like I show up and I'm like, oh, I have 3 points I can spend. All right. Whereas I do like I played for like 3 hours and I have like 16 points to play.
Sure.
I'm just like, well, all right, let's see where this goes. So you really do feel like, okay, it doesn't really hurt.
Less Horizon, more Far Cry 3.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
It's pretty nice. It's super convenient.
Nice.
So, and again, sorry. More cracking. Sorry,
all right.
my chain's kind of
Just
freaking out.
move on. It's fine.
So with that affects the gameplay a lot because then you're just constantly experimenting in combat. And the nice thing to know too is that your crew, even though they might seem kind of like derpy in terms of how they move, like when the time comes, they're gonna throw down the hammer and start like hammering, giving you like solid support, even if you're not like micromanaging their abilities.
Nice.
So it's kind of like, it's kind of a switch. Like I do kind of miss it, but then again, I don't really remember using the micromanaging system for abilities in the third game.
Lies. Oh, maybe in the third. Yeah, sure. I could see that.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, do you feel like they are actually like strategizing or using AI in any way, or is it just like regardless of your play style, they seem to just kind of like find cover and shoot?
I think they do have some AI because
I'm just curious, if you're using like a sniper rifle, will they be smart enough to have like one of them roll in with a shotgun type thing?
Yeah, it also does kind of depend on the player. Like if you're playing the Krogan, like the first thing he's going to do is run in and start beating people with like metal sticks. That's just how he rolls. Cool. And then the biotic ones tend to rush as well because they have biotic rush abilities which cause AoE damage. So
sweet.
The beginning of the battles usually start with cover and cover fire, and then they immediately start running in. They follow behind you close at your heels, which is really nice.
Vitally important. Not getting stuck on geometry and stuff.
Yeah. So it plays out really well. The second thing that's kind of a good hit, at least in my case, some people might find is a hit or miss, is the story actually kind of works. Again, it's not the best story if you compare it to like the Mass Effect trilogy, the original trilogy. But
if you compare it to the game that it willingly associated itself with.
Yeah. But the thing that makes the story good is that the gameplay is directly associated with the theme of the story. So every time you make an action, every time you do an action, you actually feel like you're progressing the story and the story's moving around the whole concept. Because your whole goal is to explore. So the story really fits around exploring. In fact, your character is an explorer, not a soldier.
I have to say, I find it really refreshing, the idea of an open world game where your objective is actually to explore. Like, I've always been very frustrated. Like, I think of Fallout 4, for example, where it's like, you have a whole world to explore. Oh, by the way, your son was kidnapped. And so you're like 35 hours into the game and you're like, I'm starting to feel a little guilty about, not bothering to rescue my son. You know what I mean? It's like, this feels like I'm breaking role play somehow by just running around the waste, dicking around when I should be rescuing my kidnapped son.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the problems I had with the first Mass Effect in terms of its story and its gameplay.
Where you're like, I gotta warn people about the Reapers, and the game is like, yeah, but you could be doing side quests.
Yeah. So, for example, like, the gameplay loop that is Mass Effect Andromeda the story fits in perfectly with that. And the story basically is discover planet, explore planet, make it viable, upgrade, put on settlements that you choose and upgrade settlements, and then of course upgrade your like pseudo citadel. That's the gameplay loop, more or less. And then insert side quests here and there. And then other things like, you got to find all the other species that are scattered around this cluster. Well, you got to explore to do that. So,
Yeah, but I just had some hardcore, like, flashbacks to trying to tag all the creatures on a planet in No Man's Sky. I got to ask you, how is the planet variety, and how is the like story of each planet, if you will? Like, does it feel hyper generic, like randomly generated type thing, or do they actually feel unique? Like, are there like, this is a hot planet, and people actually comment on the fact that it's hot here, versus this is like an asteroid and there's no atmosphere here, or we have to create one? Like, does it actually kind of seem like the content is tailored to the given planet, or does it just kind of feel like we needed to spread this over a bunch of planets?
No, but the planets feel perfectly set. They're all very diverse. Like, there's a jungle planet that's a jungle and kind of hot. And then the Eos that you start off with is kind of an arid, almost desert planet that has radiation issues. So each planet has its own, and then there's an ice planet, like a really snowy one that's super cold. So each planet has its own like specific biome set that you have to make habitable via.
Oh, that's cool. So you're like terraforming different planets differently.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
neat. That is intriguing. How is the terraforming? Is it just like collect X items and turn them into vendor and world instantly upgrades, or does it like, are you actually like, now load fuel into the like atmosphere generator?
No, it's usually Sudoku puzzles is usually how it starts. And let me just say this real quick. They are Sudoku puzzles, and they're really dumb, because if you don't play Sudoku, you're not going to know how to do it. No. And there's no real tutorial for it. However, if you do know how to play Sudoku, it's totally fine.
I hate
Sudoku.
Don't
know why they did that.
That seems like a really difficult choice. Like, what's the longest you've been stuck on one?
Not very long at all.
Oh, okay. So not,
I was stuck on it for like 15 minutes until like I looked up how to play Sudoku.
They don't explain how to play?
Yeah, that was the problem. I was like, they give you like a sentence like, insert symbols in specific order, and then hopefully the puzzle will get right. And I'm like, wait, what order do I need to put them in? So then I looked up Sudoku, and I'm like, oh, so you have to go by your X and Y axes, and none of the symbols or numbers can match in the X or Y axis. So if you're going across each column... Yes,
for the record, we all know how Sudoku works. No worries.
So I was playing it, and I'm like, okay, so once I figured out that rule set, the puzzle took like all of 5 seconds.
There you go. Yeah, actually knowing what you're doing instead of fucking flying blind usually helps.
Yeah, and then also like failing means that like the defensive system goes on. You had to kill like 2 or 3 enemies each time. So when I ran out of ammo, I was like, all right, maybe that's
when I ran out of ammo. Do they have a similar like universal ammo system from the first trilogy?
Yeah. So the first game didn't have ammo. It was just don't overheat your guns. Second and third games and this game all use thermal clips.
Mm-hmm. And it's like an omni ammo, right? Like it works for any weapon type and all that.
It's just a thermal clip, so it's not actual projectiles. It's just something that's capturing heat. The lore actually is. And this is actually a lore thing I kind of want to talk about. The futuristic weapons actually don't hold magazines of ammunition. They just hold masses of metal. So it's literally like a bar of metal that they put into the gun, and it uses like electromagnetic currents to shave off the metal to create a projectile per shot.
Oh shit, that's super dope. Is it like a rail gun? How does it shoot the projectile if they're not like bullets?
So it's using there's actually a tool. If you look on Google, there are actually like electromagnetic, like not bars, but it's like a laser. It looks like a laser that actually shaves off material.
No, I got that. I'm saying I'm wondering what the combustion, or like, you know, how is it being projected?
It's just,
that's my point. Is it like a rail gun? Is it using like a magnet tube?
Yeah, probably.
Dope! I'm just trying to tell you how cool I thought that was, Brandon. You took it way too serious.
Yeah, it's just and then what happens is actually, now that I think, so what happens is that after the first game, they realized, hey, maybe we should incorporate better cooling into our guns. So they put in the disposable thermal clips, which allow you to vent heat at an immediate rate rather than at a slow rate. So usually if you overheat it, usually you use your gun, and once it got to a high enough heat level, you had to like not use it until it cooled off. Now, once you have your set rounds, which could be 32 for an assault rifle, that's telling the gun, okay, you've used 32 rounds, let's heat the gun up to this point. We'll eject the spent or heated cartridge, then you insert a new cool cartridge in, and then keep on shooting.
Interesting. So it's not your gun that's overheating, it's the metal that's being shaved.
Yeah, and that's heat's being transferred directly into that coil.
Right. That's cool. That is neat.
Yeah, it's kind of like
you got to stop though, because we're talking about the game, okay? And right now we're talking about how cool the Mass Effect universe is. Like,
yep.
Tell me about the game. Is there any more like? Did you want to touch on any more like mechanics or anything like that? I'm just curious because I could talk about the world of Mass Effect and the science behind it and stuff for ages.
So I'm going to get to the hit or miss points. So the hit or miss is going to be the dialogue and characters are going to be hit or miss. I like them personally because they're super unprofessional and really personable.
Nice.
Quite frankly, like. Before, like when you talk to characters in Mass Effect, they're all soldiers. Like I trained in this environment. You had like your generic femme fatale character. You had your like, wayward mercenary. You had your haughty pilot that basically is Scotty from Star Trek.
I like stereotypes sometimes, or tropes rather.
Yeah, so they changed the trope up. So remember when we were having a conversation like, are you going to find your Garrus?
Yeah.
No, you're probably not going to find your Garrus.
I'm not sure I'm going to find enjoyment from this casting crew.
Yeah, you're not going to find your Garrus, but you'll find somebody just as enjoyable. Like,
enjoyment is in the eye of the beholder, my friend.
Yeah, so it's really hit or miss. Like, I find like my favorite character right now is the Krogan. He's freaking hilarious because this is the first time in Mass Effect where I've met like a happy Krogan.
He's just
strange. Happy. He's just like, I'm like, why are you so happy? Like, didn't a lot of bad things happen to you in the Mass Effect universe? He's like, oh, no, I'm just chilling, bro. And he's just cracking jokes and stuff. And I'm just like...
See, to me,
And then get into the lore and you're like, oh, that's why you're so funny. You're just like, you've done all the cool things. Like, there's a reason why you're here.
Sure.
Yeah, it's... Like, he's, like, my favorite character because, like, he's the first character that I've met that's, like, as old as a god. I'm like, holy crap.
That's neat. Yeah, I gotta say, like, that does sound intriguing, but to be honest, my knee-jerk to a happy Krogan is just like, oh, God.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought. Like, I was like, well, I've never seen one, but it's refreshing to see it.
Fair enough.
The story kind of fits why he is a happy Krogan. Like,
I feel like maybe they should have taken a little bit more of a note from The Force Awakens and played it a little bit closer to the originals. Like, I don't know. That just seems a little... Like, I would rather almost... It's been long enough, and people are thirsty enough for a new game in this series that I think people would have been maybe happy with what they've come to expect. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not really exhausted of Mass Effect games at the moment. I'm not like, oh, geez, give me something different, Mass Effect. Come on. I'm more like, I don't want Mass Effect to end. I'll take a new game.
Yeah, that's what I mean by hit or miss. I mean,
no, I know. I'm just giving my perspective. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why it's kind of a hit or miss kind of deals. Either you're going to like it or you might not like, like the same thing goes with the dialogue. It's either... Like, I like the dialogue because it's very personable, because half the stuff that they say is something that I would definitely say in that situation. Like, there's a situation where, like, after the first main set of missions that you do, they have, like, the first group meeting where they're all together, and they're like, all right, we made a planet viable. Yeah! And we didn't die! Yeah! We stopped aliens from doing this thing, and we didn't die! Yeah. And then somebody in the background was like, yeah, maybe we should raise the bar.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah. And then the last line I got, too, is... I'm
going to be honest. I'm, like, physically recoiling hearing you be like, and we didn't die. Like,
I just thought that was hilarious.
Cringe.
Yeah.
Fire your editor.
It's something you're either going to like or you're not. It's really different. And I actually like it in comparison to... We're all military guys, so we talk like military guys.
I feel like you're creating a straw man here. That is not what the Mass Effect games were like. I don't know why you're so... Like, there was a military-esque plot, but it did not feel... It's not like it was Halo. Like, fucking... There were characters who were not strictly military, and there were... Not everyone was... Like, Shepard was the hardcore, like, military guy, but even, like, Garrus wasn't, like, more interesting and developed than just a tough military dude.
Well, yeah, he was the hard-boiled. Well, he was the.
There was more to
cop.
I think you're oversimplifying a little bit. Like, yes, that was the overall trope, but like there was more to his character than that. You had to actually play the game to really get to know him. You couldn't just be like, he's the hard-boiled cop trope and be like, I know everything that's going to happen to him.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, because you got 3 games to develop him. So they're starting this series, and now you have to develop these new sets of characters. And there's going to be more, and there's going to drop a couple, just like they did in the first set.
The reason, though, that people use tropes and stuff to hook you with a character is because people know tropes. People like what they know. And if you want to, like, my advice or my general thought on this is, like, you use the trope so that people can get off the ground, learn a bunch of characters really fast, and then you impress people with character depth by having them not fully be that trope. You know what I mean? By doing something that you wouldn't expect from that trope. Whereas here it just sounds like they're immediately like, look how different we are! And you're like, yeah, but what about what I know?
Well, yeah, that's what you say. They're different from what you expected, but they still develop. Like I said, I was like, why is this Krogan so happy? And then the story developed. I'm like, oh...
I guess. That's not really developing. He was happy at the beginning, and then you find out why he's happy. That's more like backstory. But sure, developing would be more like if he was unhappy, and then he became happy.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm just saying, look, there's nothing wrong with your opinions. I just disagree with some of them. Like, you know, it is what it is. Like you said, it's hit or miss. It's not for everybody. Yeah, I'm just letting people know my thoughts on it because, you know, some people are going to be, you know, of your state of mind, and some people are going to be mine.
Yeah, and then... So there's that. That's going to be the hit or miss point. Another hit or miss point, which is a big one, is the dialogue system is going to be hit or miss. In the first 3 Mass Effects, like it was pretty clear with the Paragon Renegade system, like where you were set and like what kind of answers you were going to get. Everything in the
punch him in the face.
Yeah, punch him in the face or rub his head and say that everything is okay. You know, it's like you have 2 options. Like,
so does this fall more into the kind of Fallout 4 style, where you're like, I want to say this thing, and then they're like, say something that is not at all what you were expecting?
No, they say exactly what you're expecting.
Okay, good. So
like
what's
have,
different?
Like, dialogue.
So what
it's
makes
not the full
different?
dialogue, but it's like you're going to say this. It's like, tell them everything is going to be okay, or say, "Oh wow, I'm impressed."
Gotcha. So how does it differ?
Because in Mass Effect, it was always either good dialogue or like Paragon dialogue or Renegade dialogue, which ranged from both could be emotional, but one was positive and one was definitively negative.
Yeah, it was very binary.
Yeah, whereas the new system is very, very gray, and it's been split into like 4 different categories, which is heart, head. So you have your rational, your heart, and then you have like professional and snarky.
Interesting.
So you have those 3 things, and then suddenly decisions are like all relatively gray, and I'm not going to see, and I can't really predict what's going to happen after I make a decision, whether it was good or, because I don't know whether or not it was the right or wrong decision, which I think is refreshing for some people, but some people kind of want like that. This was a definitively good.
Yeah, sometimes I want to make sure that, like, you know, 20 hours later in the game that some NPC who took offense to a line of dialogue I didn't realize mattered, like, betrays me.
Yeah, exactly. But the good thing about that system is that, like, depending on those 4 responses, those 4 types of responses does affect your relationship with your crewmates. So some crewmates will prefer the snarkiness. And some
that's
will
cool.
prefer the
That reminds me kind of like what are those isometric RPG games that just came out recently? I'm gonna look it up really quick. So keep talking.
And so it's good. It's just I do kind of miss the Paragon Renegade system. Like I kind of want it back, but I do. No, I just want the Paragon Renegade system back. I liked it. It was those are simpler times. I didn't have to think that hard.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to be like, I'm a good guy. I'm a bad guy.
Yeah, I made a decision, and I'm still thinking about it like a week and a half later. I'm like, was that the right decision? Right. It's still going to pop up. I don't know. Was it? And then I'm like, and at one point I started looking up like law on murder. like how that's defined in different countries. And I'm like, okay, this is too much goddamn work. It's just like, let's just stop and just kind of flow with it, kind of go with the flow. And that's kind of how you do it. One more thing that might turn some people off are the open worlds. This is also hit or miss because open worlds, I think, have reached like a plateau of what you can do with them. Like Horizon Dawn is like the pinnacle of what you can do with an open world. Like there's not really much else left in that kind of segment of gaming.
Sure.
Mass Effect is not on the same level because it's designed around several different things, but the worlds are varied and the side quests are, if not the same level as your generic side missions, slightly above.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, if you're fine with open world side missions, you're good. But if you don't want to deal with that, you're not going to like it. There's no kind of middleman there. And also they have the standard open world mechanic where you scan everything. Scan this, scan that, scan the other. It's real easy to access, and there's incentive in doing it because you get crafting points for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate. There we go.
Sorry, I've been half listening this whole time, desperately trying to figure out. Yeah, it was the Baldur's Gate, new Baldur's Gate game that they had that has, I believe, that I may be mixing it up with one other. God damn it! There's one other game that's very close to it. But anyways, it's the one where you have the party where different people will like you differently, and you have different stats that are like, your aggression, your compassion, like that kind of stuff, and your party likes you variably based on your decisions. Sorry. Go on. I apologize. That was really bugging me.
Yeah. So the open worlds are varied and they are beautiful. And your Mako, for all you old Mass Effect guys, from the first game, is now called the Nomad. And the Nomad definitely runs like the Mako in the first game when you first get it. But thankfully, you can upgrade it. Let me just say that. So it does run like crap when you first get it. You're just like, why? That's like a vehicle you love to hate. Like, ugh. But once you upgrade it, it is a joy to play with because it goes fast and the jumps actually matter. Your boost is actually worth it.
Nice. Does it handle well?
Oh yeah, and you have 2 handling modes, which is even better.
What are they?
You can climb up mountains. So you have standard drive, and then you have all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive.
That was less exciting than I thought. I thought you were going to be like, you have like hover mode and like terrain mode.
Oh, you still have like your nitrous boost. You have nitrous boost, which I don't think was in the first game, and you also have jump jets, which was in the first game.
Yeah.
So you can literally like jump.
That's pretty sweet.
Vertically, and you can upgrade that. You also have nitrous, which you can also upgrade. And then the drive modes are primarily for what type of terrain you're going over, something that the first Mako had a lot of issues with ultimately. Mm-hmm. So they've added that feature in, which effectively allows you to navigate that without hating it.
How much driving are you doing on a given planet? Like, is there like a long gap between getting to locations and stuff, or are the planets like somewhat reasonably sized, or how dense is the, how densely have they populated these planets? Are there long stretches of driving in like the open?
There's long stretches of driving if you're going from point A to point B, but there's a lot of things dotted between those points, whether it be like artifacts that are guarded by things or
like actual stuff to do.
Yeah, there's stuff to do.
And like let's say you were going just straight from A to B. Are we talking, 3 to 5 minutes, or are we talking like 15 minutes?
3 to 5 minutes.
Okay, cool. So it's not like an unreasonably large world.
On top of that, when you start getting to like the ends of the maps are relatively well sized. The fast travel mechanic makes things infinitely easier.
Sure. Okay. Cool.
So this is a game where I would suggest using the fast travel.
Yeah.
Because the environments, no matter how much you love the environments, they're going to get tiring, and you're going to want to get through this game.
Gotcha.
This is not a Horizon Zero Dawn, but even in Horizon Zero Dawn, you get to a point where like, I need to go to the other side of the map. I'm not about to just run that. I got things to do. So those are things that are kind of hit or miss, and then the things that nobody is going to enjoy are the technical issues. The facial animation specifically for humans are an issue that needs to be fixed. And there's also like a couple of like actual bugs, like people kind of clipping through objects that I've seen. That's really bad because because they can shoot you, but you can't shoot them.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes you'll see
people. But more run of the mill type bugs.
Yeah,
like,
but that's not
falling through world geometry is not that uncommon.
Yeah, but that was not something you saw in any Mass Effect game.
No, certainly not. But I let it slide in Bethesda games, so I'll let it slide here.
In BioWare games?
Well, I let it slide in Bethesda games. It would only be fair.
Yeah, but they have a history of it. This is the first Mass Effect game.
That's true. No, I'm saying I'm not saying it's not relevant. I'm just saying I'm willing to let that go.
Yeah, fair enough.
As long as it's not like constant.
Yeah, but the character animations take away a lot from the dialogue.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard in particular people's eyeballs are really distracting.
Yeah, because they might not be looking at the person they're talking to. Sometimes the camera screws up the angle, which is completely out of the experience.
Someone put it really well, I think.
Really not good. Yeah.
Someone put it really well, I think, when they said it's like the actual eyeballs in the models are a little too big and also a little too expressive. Like where if a character's rolling their eyes, it's slightly nauseating to watch because of how far out their eyes roll and stuff like that.
And then also the fact that their faces are basically like blocks of like the skin animate, like their skin texturing is great. But the animations are just horrible.
Nice. Well, cool.
So I think that's gonna take you out.
Yeah. I was gonna say I think that if you want to touch on anything else real quick here, go for it. But we've been talking about Mass Effect for like 40 minutes.
The last thing I want to talk about, this is super important, is character creation is trash. We're just going to call it trash.
And I think you mentioned that last week too.
Yeah, it's oof, I can't stand it. But I'm going to wrap it up and say, from my experience playing this game, like if you're a returning fan who's played all 3 Mass Effect games, you're probably going to come in slightly disappointed with this game, simply because you have a lot coming behind it, and there's a lot of expectation coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And rightfully so. I mean, Mass Effect's story was, like, overarching, you know? Like, even trying to compare that to the third game is a bit of a stretch because the first 2 games play such an integral role in the third game's experience overall. It's very hard. But, like, Mass Effect Andromeda is definitely better than the first Mass Effect. I can tell you that much. Yeah, I would definitely say it.
I think you don't give enough reverence to original content. I often hear you blasting on the first in series, and I think it's a little unfair. I mean, they are like, how do you love the first Assassin's Creed but hate the first Mass Effect, Brandon? That makes no sense to me.
I didn't say I hated the first Mass Effect. I love it a lot, and there's still things that I prefer over all the Mass Effect games. But in terms of like how the story interacts with the gameplay,
fair enough.
This game's gameplay and story connect better than the first Mass Effect. Because here's the thing.
I should hope so. It's been 15 years or whatever, but sure.
No, there's a reason why Mass Effect 1 and Mass Effect 2 are so different. Because you have to remember, you could do planetary exploration almost exactly like in Andromeda, as you could do in the first Mass Effect. And then I always kind of wondered, like, aren't I like a special operations dude? Why am I exploring looking for iron ore?
Right.
I don't get paid for this.
It's for the war effort.
So, like, that was kind of weird. And then on top of that, the obscure side quests, which you had to go to a specific planet and then travel 30 minutes to find on.
Yeah, sure.
It was just like, why am I doing this? I should just know. I'm a Spectre, bro. I have all the information. Like, information warfare.
Yeah. All right, Brandon, we get it. Move on here.
And then people who are going to like this game are people who just kind of like really like Mass Effect. And you're like, I want another Mass Effect game. Or in new players coming in, well, actually, it is a full game. And new players coming in, if they can get past the animation issues, will actually find an enjoyable game.
Would you recommend
action RPG?
Would you recommend it to a new player who's looking at if compared to some of the other games that have come out this year and stuff, as like if somebody's going in blind, would you recommend it over other stuff? Or would you just say if you're intrigued by the concept?
Yeah, if they're looking for a sci-fi action RPG, if they fix some of those animations and technical issues, I would recommend it. Not at full price, though. Okay. I would recommend it for $40.
Okay.
It's a $40 game.
I'd probably pay $40 for it, maybe $35.
Yeah, and then because it is a long game and you have a lot to explore.
Sure, but length means less to me the older I get. Because I have so little time. You know what I mean? Where it's like, honestly, I only finish about 25% of the games I play nowadays. So, like, a game that's dauntingly long, not necessarily an upside for me.
Yeah. So, yeah, new players, if they fix the technical issues, I would definitely suggest it. And then for long-time Mass Effect players, if you have a soft spot, and we're not talking anything professional remotely, if you just have a soft spot for Mass Effect, you'll like it. But if you're expecting, if you're expecting the intense similarity to the first three games, this might not be for you, because this takes a really hard left from like the original series.
Sure.
Which is not exactly a bad thing. So that's basically all I have for it.
Whew, thank God. Okay. Very interesting. I'm going to stop you right there, though, because I have one more game I want to talk about, and we're about to have a full-length episode after all. So the last game I wanted to talk about here before we bring this episode to a close is something that I'm going to say is a strong do not buy recommendation. In my desperation before Snake Pass and Has Been Heroes came out this last weekend, I've been checking the eShop basically every day, just looking to get some more variety of games for my Switch. And one game that came out, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, was New Frontier Days Founding Pioneers. And, I mean, I really should have known better, but I said screw it. I want more titles to play around with, and I have a good, I'm a big fan of management games, so I thought I'd pick this up. And this is a poorly optimized and kind of boring game that looks like a cell phone game, and is just not very inspired. Like, it's just... You go, the progress is insanely slow. You're like, you got a villager and he goes and he mines stone, and then you can process the stone once you've built a quarry, and then once you've got which doesn't even make sense, and then once you've got a mill and wheat fields, you can produce grain and flour, and then you can increase your population and upgrade your base. And then, it sounds good in theory, but let's see, there's 7 stages, I think, of advancement that you can level up as you go, different ages that unlock different buildings. And I played it for a good 5 hours on the day that I picked it up and got to the 3rd age. And was just this is too slow. Way too slow. It's not like there's actual timers stopping you from making progress. However, there is a real issue with okay, it's going to take 5 minutes for them to harvest enough resources for me to be able to get the next thing. And maybe I'm playing it wrong, but if the review scores that I ignored are anything to go by, really, I would avoid this game. It is not worth the $10 that it costs.
It's kind of sad.
Yes, so do not buy New Frontier Days Founding Pioneers. Again, if you're looking for recommendations for good Switch titles, I'd say, obviously, Zelda. For younger people, Snake Pass is the next best thing. And for people with slightly stronger constitutions, Binding of Isaac is a classic. But, yeah.
What about Shovel Knight?
Oh! Holy shit, I am so sorry, you guys. You know what? Brandon is 1,000% right. Shovel Knight absolutely should be on this list.
Now, just before you continue, isn't that the one that has isn't the expanded edition of Shovel Knight?
Yes, I picked up the treasure chest, so it includes 3 campaigns and a 4th when it's released. And it's a little tough for me because I have a weird relationship with Shovel Knight. I really like it, love the aesthetic. However, it's not the kind of game that I know I'll ever beat, per se. It's more the kind of thing that I'm like, I want to play a platformer for a little bit. And so, from my perspective personally, and my not being a massive 2D platformer fan, I'm going to say Shovel Knight is in the top 3 for younger people, but I would still probably put Binding of Isaac above it. I don't think it'd be fair, though, to beat it out with Snake Pass. Even though I'm really enjoying Snake Pass, I've put a lot more time into Shovel Knight than I've put into Snake Pass so far. And Snake Pass is more of a casual game. So, younger people probably stick with, the more, family-friendly type titles like Snake Pass, Shovel Knight. And then for older people, I would say, though, definitely don't miss Binding of Isaac, because that is a great game. And if you haven't played it, I highly recommend it, as long as you're not squeamish.
Does it have Afterbirth included in it as well?
Yes, it is. The only version you can get on the Switch is Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus, Binding of Isaac Rebirth Afterbirth Plus. Which is, it's the 4th iteration of the game, so it has...
That's a lot of birth.
It's got the original content and the expansion, and then the additional expansion they released, and then it's the remade version, too, that has the, 16-bit graphics instead of the, original Flash animation-looking art. But yeah, so highly recommend, just in summary, I highly recommend Snake Pass if you guys haven't checked it out yet. And you can, again, pick it up on any platform. It is $20. And I think well worth it, especially if you are a fan of the wonderful David Wise. Anyways, as I'm sure you guys can tell, this show has been procedurally generated. We hope you've enjoyed listening. You can check us out on Libsyn and iTunes, where you can leave a rating or review. Let us know what you think. You can also follow us on Twitter at PG_show, or if you prefer to watch the show on YouTube, or rather listen to it on YouTube, you can always check it out on my channel. That is lesser.noob on YouTube. That's N00B, or just search Henry Plays. Thank you guys so much for listening, and as always, game on.